What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Week 12 preview predictions are continuing on the channel today as we are going to be talking about the rivalry in the state of Kansas. As the Kansas State Wildcats, a team that has dominated this series as of late, but the Kansas Jayhawks have done nothing but break trends and break streaks this season. And even though there are some injuries going on with this team right now, this is still a Kansas team that is absolutely capable of pulling off the streak ender and pulling off the upset in Lawrence, Kansas. This is going to be a fun one. Mathematically, both of these teams still not out of the race for a Big 12 title berth, or I should say a Big 12 title game berth. So this could end up being a very important game down the stretch if we get some more chaos in the Big 12 Conference. But before we dive into this video really quickly, really any way that you guys help interact with this channel helps us support it. A huge way is by watching this video. Not a lot of people realize it. The biggest way, obviously, is hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell. But again, anything you do to interact with the channel helps to support it. Liking, commenting, sharing, anything else you are willing and able to do, good, bad, negative, positive, whatever it is, you're helping to support the channel by interacting with it. So I appreciate whatever anyone is able to do. Let's dive into this video. Kansas State Wildcats, Kansas Jayhawks. This should be a fun one here from Lawrence, Kansas. Let's dive on into the stats both these teams have put up so far this season. Both of these teams are ranked as per the recent rankings put out by the College Football Playoff Committee. Again, if you go back and watch my Georgia, Tennessee, if you go back and watch my Washington, Oregon State, they are the rankings from the week prior because when I recorded those videos, didn't have the current rankings out. Now we do, so the current rankings have been updated. Kansas State's the number 21 team in the country. It's been sort of a weird up and down, ebb and flow for this Kansas State team so far this season, but they really have started to settle in, and the turnovers that plagued Will Howard in the early season have not plagued him over the past 4 or 5 games or so. 2,190 yards, 21 touchdowns. Again, he does have those 8 picks on the year, but a lot of those came throughout what up to this point has been the first 5 or 6 games through this season. Again, for the past 4 or 5 games, Will Howard has really cleaned up the turnovers that he has given to the opposing sides. This is an offense that, look, we know Will Howard can throw. Maybe is not dynamic of an attack as it was last year when you had guys like Malik Knowles. Obviously, he's gone. Still a lot of good wide receivers here in this room. Phillip Brooks, the tight end, Ben Sanat. You have a phenomenal running back in DJ Giddens, who's a very reliable option out of the backfield to catch the ball as well. Jaden Jackson, Jace Brown, RJ Garcia. There are a lot of very, very good, talented names here in this Kansas State skill position room. 49.3% is what they are on third down. They're a really, really good third down team. Likely, you're probably going to need to have that offensive line step up a little bit here. Give Will Howard a little bit more time. Getting yourself into third and longs is not going to help you here in this game. It is a Kansas defense that has its moments where it's able to bring pressure. But you could say the same thing about this Kansas State defense too, right? 22 sacks, that's 2.2 sacks per game. The rush defense, for the most part this season, has been really, really good. Only 119 rushing yards allowed per season. The secondary, probably the weak point of this defense, but it hasn't really been too bad so far this season. You have 3 guys on this defense that have at least 6 passes defended. That's your safety, Marquez Sigel, your cornerback there in Will Lee, and another corner in Jacob Parrish. And Parrish also leads the team with 3 interceptions. Total 40 passes defended, 10 interceptions for this Kansas State Wildcat secondary. Really, really good. They're one of the best third down defenses in the country. It's a defense that I feel like has only gotten better as the season has gone along. There were some early hiccups. Again, not only on offense with Will Howard turning the football over, but there were also some early hiccups with this defense, giving up the big play, just not being super efficient defensively, and it led to a couple early season losses there against the Missouri Tigers, the Oklahoma State Cowboys as well. But I feel like the defense has only improved from the start of the season, and it's going to come in handy here when you play a Kansas Jayhawk offense that, again, for the most part this year has been pretty dynamic. Now, we know the quarterback situation at Kansas is going to be a little bit under question. Jalen Daniels likely is out here for Kansas in this game. Jason Bean, we don't really know the status of him either because he went out in Kansas's loss to the Texas Tech Red Raiders this past week. So if Jason Bean plays, I think that just gives another huge advantage to this Kansas offense. They have a dynamic duo in the running back room, Devin Neal, Daniel Highshaw, both guys with over 100 carries. Both guys can hurt you in their own different ways. So if one guy's not working, the other one likely has something going. It makes this Kansas rush game really, really tough to stop. But again, the just uncertainty throughout the entire season in the quarterback room, I think, has really started to plague this team, and it could absolutely plague them in this game here. You saw Cole Ballard throw his first passes of the season this past week against Texas Tech. No touchdowns, one pick, 9 of 20 for 30, or 9 of 20, my apologies, for 124 yards. Sorry, just kind of combining stat categories over here. I'll reread it. 9 of 20, 124 yards, no touchdowns, one pick in the game against Texas Tech for Cole Ballard. So he's definitely going to have to take a step up. Has a lot of good weapons, does have some good wide receivers. Starts out with Lawrence Arnold, Quentin Skinner, Mason Fairchild, and others. So he does have good weapons. Whether or not, though, it is Jason Bean, whether or not, though, it is Ballard, you're going to have to find that rhythm offensively because, again, as I said, this is a Kansas State defense that I feel like has only improved as the season has gone along. And defensively for Kansas, when you go back and look at statistics, statistically, I do think it is probably, again, I don't have last year's statistics off the top of my head, but it feels like this is the defense that is improved when you take a look at the Kansas defense from last season. They're able to generate more pressure. They are generating some turnovers. However, this team does have some problems. They can struggle at times defending the run. They have the tendency to give up the big play. 41.3% allowed on third down is not a great mark. They're just kind of statistically around the middle of the road, maybe even a little bit below that across most major categories in the country, apart from turnovers, force, and sacks. They even still might be middle of the road, if not a little bit above the line there in those two categories. It's the Kansas defense that really struggles to defend teams that spread you out. That's not Kansas State's strength, but it is what they're going to look to do. As we get into your what to watch for, keys to the game, whatever you want to call it, just some things I think you should keep an eye on when you're paying attention to this game. You got to be able to stretch the Jayhawk defense. Again, defending outside the hashes, defending outside the numbers, giving up the big play on the boundary for the Kansas Jayhawks has been a struggle for this defense. So if Kansas State can kind of spread the field a little bit more than they usually do and be able to hit some deep shots down the field, be able to get some big runs, especially being able to stretch it to the outside with Giddens and other running backs, Trayshawn Ward, maybe even if Will Howard wants to get outside of the pocket and go for a nice 10, 15-yard scramble, that's really going to get in the head of this Jayhawk defense, and it's going to lead to nothing but beneficial things for this Kansas State Wildcat offense. Again, they have a lot of good weapons, but be able to stretch the field here is going to allow you to play your best against this Jayhawk defense. Defensively, though, for Kansas State, again, with the quarterback situation uncertain, of course, if Jason Bean plays, you're going to need to key on him, but to start, you got to key in on Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw. That is the phenomenal running back duo that Kansas has in their backfield. Now, Kansas State's rush defense has been pretty solid for the most part this season, but you can't let it have holes here, because if you let Kansas run all over you, really no matter who is at quarterback, whether that's a Bean, whether that's Ballard, whether by some miracle, if that's Jalen Daniels that comes back and plays here in this game. If the rush game is going, Kansas is going to be a really tough team offensively to stop. I mentioned this in my introduction. The Wildcats have dominated this series, but the Jayhawks have been trend breakers all season long. Here's what they're going to need to do to break what I believe is 14 or 15-year losing streak against the Kansas State Wildcats. First off, no matter who it is, quarterback play is going to have to be stellar. I suspect that if Jason Bean ends up playing in this game, he is not going to be at 100%, and whether or not it's Ballard getting your first collegiate start against the reigning Big 12 champs and a defense that has just started to look more and more scary as the season has gone along. Not a great way to really start out your career. Now, obviously it is if you go and win the game, but from what Ballard showed in that game there against Texas Tech, if he is the guy that is ready to go here for Kansas in this game, Jason Bean can't, Jalen Daniels can't, and it is Ballard, he's going to need to make some drastic improvements really, really fast. Did not show me a whole lot to get super excited about there in that game against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. If you are Kansas, defensively, shrink the field. This is something that Kansas is going to want to try to stretch. If Kansas State is going to want to try to stretch, they're going to want to get outside on the boundaries. If the Kansas Jayhawks can shrink the field, they can keep the game inside of the top of the numbers. They're going to have a much better opportunity here to be able to win this game. You need to allow virtually nothing on the outside. Now, again, this is a Kansas State team that can beat you over the middle as well, but it's going to be a whole lot easier to defend if Kansas doesn't have to worry about the boundary, which is something they've struggled to defend throughout the past couple of seasons. You got to be able to get Will Howard back to turning the ball over as well. If Will Howard is going to be back there slinging it, if he's going to be back there making plays, obviously that's going to lead to some very detrimental things for this Kansas Jayhawk team. But when Will Howard is there, right? My train of thought is kind of getting lost. You need to get Will Howard back to turning the football over. So whether that is pass rushing him really, really aggressively, maybe bringing some different blitz packages that a lot of teams haven't seen from the Jayhawks so far this season, whether that is being able to force him into making some bad throws, whether that is jumping routes, you got to get Will Howard back to turning the football over. Now, there is a lot more than that Kansas is going to need to do to be able to break the streak against the Kansas State Wildcats, and with the uncertainty of the quarterback situation, I just do not feel confident picking with the home side here in this. The season has gone along. I am going with the Kansas State Wildcats in this game. I got a final score of 34-21. Don't know what happened with my mic. I heard that in my headphones. Hopefully it sounded okay there for you guys, but I'm going with the Kansas State Wildcats in this game. 34-21 is my final score prediction. I think that defense is going to step up, make too many plays for Kansas to be able to counter with offensively, especially knowing that quarterback situation is much up in the air for the fans in Lawrence. Let me know what you guys think of this game in the comment section below, and as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.